I wanted to speak today about dissolution and spiritual self-care. So I feel like a big topic we're going to take a chunk out of today. But to start out with, I want you to just kind of answer in your own mind this question. If you are an egg, if you're a carrot, if you're a tea leaf, or maybe something else. So I'll start with those three first. So it's really interesting, these three objects, because when you have a pot of boiling water, and you start out with a carrot, and the carrot is really, really strong and firm, has a structure to its shape. But if you put that carrot into the boiling hot water, what happens? It literally disintegrates, like it falls apart, it becomes mush, it becomes baby food. And then if we look at the scenario with the egg, maybe start out with a little bit of a hard shell, but we're soft on the inside. But then when we put it in the pot of boiling water over time, not only does the shell stay hardened, but the inside also hardens as well. So if you guys are recognizing this theme here where, are we as human beings, ourselves, are we likened to any of these objects where through life, which I think of maybe sometimes can feel like a pot of boiling water, puts a certain amount of stress and pressure on us. Do we fall apart and become mush? Or do we harden ourselves on the inside on top of our hardened outside? Or are we something like a tea leaf where we're placed in the hot boiling water and we not only change the environment around us, but we still retain our own structure. And not only do we change the essence around us, the pot of boiling water, we've essentially given back to it in such a way where it can be of benefit to other people. Right? People can drink it and they have tea. Right? And that we may fall into one of those categories. And if we do, totally okay to recognize that's where you're at right now. But there's a fourth way of being that sometimes we don't speak to very often, especially in the outer world out there, which is like being an Alka-Seltzer tablet, right? We get placed into that boiling water and we completely dissolve. Not only do we dissolve, essentially the essence that we left behind, is more or less looks colorless and odorless, right? Depending, I guess, on what Alka-Seltzer tablet you use. And I want to speak a little bit about that today because that essentially is what we are agreeing to, if that's the correct word, when we come onto the spiritual path. We're essentially agreeing to become this Alka-Seltzer tablet with our ego and drop it into the water and allow it to dissolve away. And that dissolution of our ego is not always fun, and it doesn't always feel really comfortable. Sometimes there's struggle involved and there's pain and suffering, sure. But if we take a step back and sit in our spiritual selves and recognize what is happening, we can start to appreciate the process. Right? And when we begin to start to appreciate the process and see the further benefits around that, we might start to even begin to enjoy the process. And for a person that's really rooted in their ego, that might sound really masochistic or sadistic. It's like, hurting myself and I'm dissolving. What the heck are you asking of me? But we're not looking from the egotistical self. We're looking at it at this perspective from our spiritual self. So in this dissolution process, whether you have agreed to it or not consciously, unconsciously it probably has already occurred if you've already begun seeking on this path, right? And you're striving, diligently striving to learn more in this spiritual world, in this spiritual realm. So the other piece I want to speak to you guys about today is how to cultivate our own spiritual self-care during that time. And I know a lot of people, all of you guys, I'm sure, already have some basic practice of self-care. And if that is working for you, please continue to do that. What I'm here to say today is really just an offering of additional ideas and suggestions that you may want to try out. See for yourself, because as you know, this spiritual path and practice is all about your own personal experiential experience. No one can tell you otherwise. We can get guidance, we can get, offerings from other teachers and so forth like that may point us in the direction. But we have to take our own 2 feet and walk that path and see for ourselves if it's true for us, right? That's, I feel like, a real important aspect of spiritual growth and spiritual dissolution. It has to be personal, but not personal in the sense of an egotistical way. So some of the spiritual self-care concepts I wanted to share with you are, one, first and foremost, a consistent daily practice, personal practice, sitting meditation. So in our personal daily practice, once a day is really good. Twice a day is even better, kind of like a morning and evening thing. And you can sit for what's comfortable for you. You can utilize the technique that you've learned from some other teacher, or you can use the technique that you learned from here. And it doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes a day, or, probably want to maybe max it out at about an hour each sitting. But instead of kind of getting the ego involved and you start getting competitive, like, oh, my friend is sitting for 15 minutes, I need to sit for half an hour, right? That it needs to feel honest and true for yourself. Because it doesn't do you any good spiritually if you start and do the half an hour practice, and then all of a sudden after one day you're like, I'm so burnt out, I can't do that ever again. And you don't come back onto your sitting meditation cushion for another 2 years, right? That defeats like the purpose of the whole thing. So better to start with 5 minutes each sitting practice, 15 minutes for 3 songs maybe, and do 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening. If you can continue that morning and evening consistently every day, maybe it's, 3 days a week, and then it builds up to 5 days a week, and then you build it up to 7 days, but to maintain that, I'd be curious to hear you guys' feedback and comments when that happens, because when my clients practice it, they come back with some pretty cool feedback. So I offer that to you guys as one aspect. Another aspect is body movement. I think sometimes when we start talking about meditation practice, sometimes we lose sight and focus of the movement around the body. What do I mean by that? I'm speaking exercise, but specifically in a form of exercise, martial arts. Martial arts has this amazing capacity has this, best way I can describe is kind of like a parallel path to your spiritual sitting meditation practice. And the reason I found that to be true is when we're in our heads, it's this very two-dimensional world sometimes. But when we get onto a martial arts mat and we're executing a technique, working with someone else's body system, we're really working in this three-dimensional world, right? We're feeling things, we're trying to implement things with our mind, we're also trying to affect it in a certain way with our bodies. And the energy output of how we are presenting our bodies when we're on the meditation mat, martial arts mat, excuse me. So something to consider. And I know it might not seem like there's a correlation of sitting meditation and martial arts. Gratefully, I had my sitting meditation practice prior to the martial arts practice. And the way it's helped me grow on the martial arts mat, the way I'm able to understand the concepts and components, have not only deepened my spiritual sitting meditation practice, but it's also helped me grow so much stronger, a little bit more fluid when I'm on the martial arts mat. It's a powerful practice when you get onto the martial arts mat and you have a sitting meditation practice and an attacker comes to grab you, or they try to throw a punch at you, that you've gotten a certain foundation already of stillness in your body and in your mind, that you can take that, bring it into the martial arts mat, and effectively work on dealing with the attacker, right? The attacker is just the label of the partner you work with on the martial arts mat. Other self-care things. Simple, not always easy. Probably some of these are so basic that it might seem redundant to hear again, but food, nutrition, totally how it fuels our body system. Just like an Olympic athlete when they're training for their event, right, for their day of competition, they're probably not sitting around eating McDonald's every day. They're really mindful of the nutrition of what they are putting into their body system so it can have the optimal output. And it's so key today, especially when we can get so caught up in the fad of whatever's happening out there with the food or nutrition. I don't want to say dogma, but there's some hardened beliefs, in Buddhist philosophy or practices that you have to be vegetarian. And I would say, besides F that sounds so disrespectful. I would say what it needs to happen is it needs to be true for you. If you're a vegetarian and that's true for you and that's right for your living and your way of life, I wholeheartedly support that. For me, that doesn't work for me in my life. If I'm doing my exercises, if I'm getting my butt kicked on the martial arts mat and or trying to kick butt, there's no way I'm functioning on vegetables. My body just needs a little bit more heavier protein, so I eat meat, right? And if there are any vegetarians out there, sorry if I offended you. Excuse me. But the essence around that is going back to the spiritual self-care is it has to be for ourselves in a very selfish way, it looks like. It can be perceived that, but the selfish way is actually very selfless. If we're doing it in a healthy way and we keep our energy fueled right, body moving so we're not achy and we can move out there in the world, we can address people, places, and things in a healthy manner and not become shut down, stepped on, pushed around. Not only are we able to hold our ground, but we're able to begin to affect change, not only to other people's life, but for our own. Nothing wrong with kindness, nothing wrong with compassion and offering that. But it's not kindness anymore if you're letting everybody walk all over you, because that builds resentments, that fuels possible feelings of anger, right? And that spins us out in an unhealthy way. And we lose our spiritual center. And when we lose our spiritual center, we're spinning out. It's helpful to have certain anchors to hold on to or grab a hold of so that we can keep ourselves buoyant. You know, like if you're in the ocean and there's huge waves that day, for whatever reason, with the moon and the tides, really big waves. It's nice and helpful to have a few flotational devices around you. That maybe you're out there exploring the ocean, exploring a cool little cove or some of the reef, but then the waves start getting too much that you can come up, you can grab a hold of, let's say, your life jacket that you had set there so that you can take a break, take care of yourself in such a way where you can still go down and still explore instead of freaking out and all of a sudden feel like you're drowning and then have that spiral out into a whole other issue. So nutrition, we have movement, consistent daily practice. And just a few other added ones that I enjoy. This doesn't have to be yours, but just wanting to put it out there as a suggestion, as an offering, is I really enjoy journaling. That practice of that physical, mind spinning and then channeling it through the hand to be able to do some physical writing, right? Helps process a lot of things. It doesn't always have to be bad things on the journaling. Journaling can be really powerful when it's the positive, bright, beautiful things, because then the journal, if you have a specific journal that is just for the happy, bright things in your life, it literally becomes this power spot for you. So when you're having a bad day, let's say you feel like you're in the ocean, you lost all your flotational devices and you feel like maybe you're drowning, you can open up that journal and it literally pulls you right back into those bright, happy moments. And that in its sense is another form of a life vest. And I think aside from that, other piece is personal time. Personal time specifically in the form of getting out into nature. Right? Nature is so grounding, rejuvenating, balancing. Right? There's a purity and a clarity around nature where it helps to kind of clear us out a little bit of not only what's been going on in our own lives, but maybe all the things that people around us, work, relationships, roommates, family members have been putting on to us, right? So getting out into nature can be as simple as going out just to sit out in the ocean for a few minutes. And don't be afraid to do things by yourself. That's another component of that personal time. Sometimes we get so used to people around us, family, friends, relationships, significant others or kids, that we almost can get used to all of that energy swirling around in us, that we can lose touch with how we actually feel. And when we take time out in the nature, we can actually center and get clear by ourselves. We can really get clear on, oh, this is how I feel. Oh, I'm not really feeling that irritable. What is that about? So then maybe it's something that we're picking up in our environment or in the relationships or the people that are around, that's what it is. It's not necessarily I am irritable, right? There's a real subtle differentiation around that. So really, really healthy and powerful to be able to spend time by yourself. Go to the movies by yourself, right? Do certain things by yourself. It's a whole new experience. It really is. And sometimes it feels really vulnerable and really the insecurities come up like, oh my gosh, I need to like hide and hold someone's hand or like be talking to someone. Oh, I better pull out my phone. I definitely got to check out my phone now because it's so weird. I'm sitting by myself. It happens all the time. But if we start to do this, we get a certain sense of comfort and familiarity around that becomes enjoyable. That when we have had a really full week around all kinds of people, places, and things, when we get out to nature and we go to that movie by ourselves, it's like, oh, I can finally feel how I feel, right? And let all the other stuff that isn't mine go. And it's a little bit easier to do that when we realize how we feel. It's a little bit harder, not saying it's not impossible, it's just a little bit harder for in the thick of things and everything swirling around, you're like, gosh, I'm really irritated, this is really pissing me off, and not catching that maybe it's not you getting pissed off, it's someone else. Because a component of living in the world out there is we have to have a certain proficiency of our spidey senses, yes? To survive, essentially, when we're out there. You know, when you see something that doesn't look right going down the street, probably cross the street, go down the other side of the street. That would be intelligent. You don't have to do that, though. But don't do that in the intelligent way where it turns into a way of running away from. That's another thing. Doesn't mean like, oh my gosh, I can't deal with that down the street. I gotta cross the street. Oh my gosh, there's a traffic jam. I can't cross the street. Oh, and now we're paralyzed and we're stuck. And we're in this egoic place of fear, right? And aversion. And then the suffering starts. Sometimes just to play with it, you see something kind of funky, and if you feel like you're in a strong enough place and some of the options don't look that great, like, okay, see how I can do by staying as neutral, centered as I can, by walking through that and moving on to the next thing and not getting caught up. Our world is so very big into dramatizing things and glorifying things, right? We see it on the news, we see it in TV, Netflix episodes, we see it in movies, we see it everywhere. So just being mindful of not getting caught up in that drama. Of course you can, and sometimes it's fun to go for a dramatic, glorified ride. But recognize that all those things, all those choices we make in our lives is an energy output. So if we sit on our meditation cushion in the morning, fill ourselves up, battery power 100%, we go out into the day, every choice, everything we do takes a certain amount of energy expenditure. And there's a certain fluctuation just for the general maintenance of life and living life, you know. Maybe it's 20%. So you're fluctuating in that 80 percentile, you know, with living and working in life, getting groceries, getting gas. So we have to recognize in that energy output, if we're making choices to go through certain gnarly situations or always getting sucked up in some kind of drama, that it also takes a certain amount of energy to be part of that. It might deplete us 5%, it might deplete us 20%. And next thing you know, if we're not super mindful, we're down in the 60 percentile of our battery power after dealing with something really intense, that now we're feeling, oh my gosh, if I don't repower myself up, then I can start moving into the red zone. I'm sure you guys see, low battery, warning. That becomes a warning physically, spiritually, mentally for ourselves if we're in a low battery zone, because it becomes really easy for us to get taken out in the swirling of the world out there, right? We're not having our power up, right? We're not having our 80 percentile, 90 percentile of battery power where we're operating from something that's really, really difficult, and having the strength to move beyond that, and move beyond that well. So you don't come out of it bruised, battered, or limping, right? You come out of it, like a fine-tuned race car, 0 to 60 in however many point seconds, and then come back down to a stop, and you're fine. Right? It's also really lovely and beautiful to experience when we have a consistent spiritual self-care, and when we're able to keep ourselves in that really high powered up state, battery power life, 80, 90, 100%. It gives us also the strength and capacity to push beyond all the potential opposition or obstacles in our life and achieve something we really want to achieve. That could be the black belt you've been training for in the martial arts. That could be the marathon race you've been wanting to sign up for and complete. It could be going to go to a cooking class that you've wanted to do and be able to cook an awesome meal, for a dinner party that you invite your friends and family over to. So when we keep our energy up, it's not that we hoard it for ourselves and we never leave our house and we just hide out in a cave, right, and become a recluse. We use that increased energy from our spiritual self-care to help us accomplish the next awesome thing that we want to accomplish in our life. Could be not only finish undergrad school, but then graduating from graduate school. So I've done a lot of talking. I'm curious to hear if there are any questions, thoughts, or comments. I welcome disagreements too if you totally disagree with anything I said. That's how we learn, right? Can't always be right, because that's definitely the ego. Questions or clarifications on anything?
So I'm curious, when you journal,
Mm-hmm.
were you saying you have a journal for positive, happy memories?
Yeah.
You put sort of negative things you may be struggling with in another
Yeah.
journal?
Yeah, you can definitely do that. Sometimes in the beginning it doesn't feel like there's that much space for either, so it kind of, in the beginning for me, it was kind of both was happening in that same journal, the good and the bad. Mm-hmm. But eventually, when we continue the practice, we start to maybe really appreciate and want to capture those beautiful moments, right? And maybe, yes, utilize a separate place and space to process some of those more painful moments, right? And it's important to do that because sometimes in the world that we live in today with so much pain and suffering, it's really easy to say, okay, I just need to do everything that has nothing to do with pain and suffering, right? So that avoidance thing that, people can coin it as spiritual bypass. So it's like, no, I'm good. I just got to stay positive all day long. But there's a subtle catch that we can get caught up in. Spiritual practice is really cultivating this equanimity. that equanimity that allows us to walk the middle way. And when we're doing that, we're balanced. When we're on one side or the other, it fuels the possibilities and potential for other. And it can be aggression, it could be, discrimination, it could be whatever that other is that's separate from us. Good point, thank you. Good question. Any other questions? Which then would be what we would call the spiritual elitism, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Spiritual ego, if you will, right? Yeah.
And that, it's that pendulum swing when we have a minority group that's been oppressed.
Yes.
And they start coming into, and women have done it too, we have the whole feminists, put all the men in jail.
Oh, poor guys.
Where, it swings, there's that, and that, I think it comes out of that moral superiority that you're kind of pointing to. And so we have to recognize when that arises in our own being, because we can't fix it in anybody else, but we can notice it.
Yes. Beautiful, because you remind me of an example. My personal example is I work with clients in substance recovery, and so I'm the therapist there. I'll see clients, and one of the new clients I was really looking forward to seeing, I mentioned, I'm looking forward to seeing today later on after group, and she completely flipped out on me. I'm like, I didn't think I did anything. She's like, I don't fucking need another therapist. I don't want to see you. I was like, oh my God. Oh, okay. Right. And I didn't feel like I came at her in any sideways way, but so it really took me off balance. And it had me take a step back. And initially it hurt because it was like, dude, I'm not doing anything but trying to be kind to you and trying to offer a service, and I just felt like I just got the smack down. But when I sat with that more, because that ego jumps in, right? So when someone's being really aggressive, natural defense mechanism is to be defensive. You want to put your fist up? I'll put my fist up. Okay, you want to punch? I'm going to throw a punch too. But that gets us nowhere. It just cycles into this painful suffering cycle. But I had to watch my ego arise and watch it get really defensive. And then I had to feel like I had to swallow all that. Okay, the ego, I get it, I hear you, I see you, but I had to work a little bit deeper on the spiritual self to say what is getting me triggered. Because it's really easy if we're living in that world of ego, we're not able to separate ourselves. It's like we start calling names. And then it becomes this fight. But when I was able to separate the ego for a moment, check in, instead of feeling like I am better than, other than her, it was so apparent, because when we actually did have the moment to sit together, I was like, oh my gosh, I see so much of myself in her. I really did. I really recognized, the stubbornness and the oppositional stance that she had against the world. And I got to a place where I could really genuinely respect and admire it, because I saw what it did for me in my life growing up when I was younger. It was like, no, you will not put me in a box. I refuse to be put in a box. And this is very much her kind of a field too. Thank God for this spiritual practice. I was balanced enough to have an awesome session with her. And I thought, awesome. But then our ego takes a hold of that and it's like, see, you're so great. See, now you've made a friend. See, you made an enemy into a friend and all this stuff like that. And then you get these expectations. Heck no. Next week, are we meditating again? This is so dumb, And I'm like, oh my God, I thought we bonded? I thought we were good. No. But because I did that initial process, the second round back for me to look at myself and change or affect whatever I needed to do without resorting and residing in my ego of like, oh yeah? Well, I'm gonna control, manipulate, get aggressive with you. Back. So when we start this practice spiritually of developing ourselves, we get better at it. We get better at it where they don't even know we're going through it. They don't even know that we've struggled, we've been affected. They just think, damn, why are you smiling again? I just cussed you out, or whatever it is. But this is the same thing as when we're on the martial arts mat. In the beginning, when we start out as a white belt, everything feels really clunky. Everything feels really disjointed. But then when we become a black belt in the higher ranking belts, everything is fluid. It becomes a dance. It's like, oh, someone's coming to grab me. Okay, this is how I move. And it looks like a dance. It really does. And it's so beautiful. But when we're in our initial stages, which is where we all start, it looks like, oh crap, you grabbed me. And you're frozen for 3 minutes. And the other person is like, yo, are you still there? You gotta like move. Oh, what? Get really into our heads. So this is all to say, everyone starts as a white belt. Everyone goes through all that awkwardness. And if we stick to that practice, we get better at that. We get more fluid. So don't lose hope. Wherever you're at, don't lose hope.